Hey, look out. Welcome to Two Pastors Unplugged. I'm Rick Probst. Well, I've talked to his brother Josh many times and his dad, who is amazing. And I always wanted to talk to Jonathan Youssef. Pastor Jonathan Youssef is on the podcast today, and I'm pretty pumped. Pastor, how are you?
I'm great, Rick. I think always might be a bit of an overstatement.
Okay, you
You're
got
the
me there.
first. You're
Yeah.
the first.
It's good to see you and good to hear from you. I did notice, I do want to talk about, of course, the Church of the Apostles and what's going on. And your story is fascinating. I did not know that you had spent time in Sydney. I knew that you and Lindsay had been married for about 10 years, which this is, you should be, what are you doing for 10 years? Are you going to a special place or what?
So we celebrated 10 years in March, but this summer we're going to go to the UK. My sister lives in the UK, and she'll be out of town, so we're gonna hold up in her house in
Yeah.
Bath, and sort of drive around the countryside, sans children. So it's going to be hopefully a relaxing, restful, rejuvenating time for the two of us.
Good for you guys.
Mm.
Now you've probably done a lot of I'm gonna only assume that you've done a lot of traveling. Your favorite what would be your favorite place you think that you could go back every other month, every year? What would be that place?
So as you had mentioned, my wife and we lived in Australia for 3 years.
Mhm.
I have citizenship through my parents. My wife is now has permanent residency. We're working on her citizenship, and my three children have citizenship. Our eldest was born in Sydney, and it was a really it's special in a lot of ways. One, Australia, Sydney is just a beautiful part of the world to begin with. But then on top of that, it was where um, we'd only been married about 9 months when we moved there, and I started working for an Anglican church. If anyone has familiarity with Sydney, Australia, it's the part of the city right across the harbor bridge from the Opera House.
Mhm.
A lot of iconic buildings and everything, and so we lived on the other side, what they call the lower North Shore, and I worked for a man called Simon Manchester, and Simon had studied under Dick Lucas in the UK, and if anyone knows that name, Dick was at, St. Helens Bishopsgate, which is a little it's not little, it's a big Anglican church that's underneath the Gherkin building in London. So it's right in the heart of the city. It survived, an IRA bombing in the, early '90s, I believe, had to be restructured. Um, the man who plays Poirot, um,
Yes.
uh, he reads the Bible. Suchet, David
Yeah,
Suchet, he
yeah.
goes to that church. Um, and St. Helens has really been just a beacon of evangelicalism, solid Bible teaching in London. Dick would have been contemporaries with John Stott, and he's still alive today, as far as I know. He's in his mid 90s, I believe. But anyway, I had this great privilege of working with Simon, who really kicked my tail when it came to learning uh, what preaching is. You think I would have known that being the son of a preacher? The process of growing in your preaching never stops. Um, and so it was just such a special place to go and really learn and see a church of a different size than Church of the Apostles, of
Yeah.
which I've known my whole life. I went to smaller Presbyterian churches when I was in college, but it was a unique place and a special place to us. So that's one of our favorite places. Favorite people are there, and will always be that way.
I have a few Australian friends and they're pretty I've never been, but they describe where they live. They lived in Sydney, and it's one of those places that everybody wants to go. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just an amazing place. Hopefully someday we'll be able to go. I noticed that just doing a little digging with you, there was a time in your life when you didn't want to. I mean, as you mentioned, you grew up in church, right?
Sure.
And an amazing father, but you just didn't want pastoral ministry to be your vocation.
Not even
Wait,
close.
how many times have we heard that story, right? It's almost like it is written. Here you have someone that did okay, I'm not interested. And in fact,
Yeah,
I think you went the way of working in politics,
it did.
in a one form or fashion. And,
Yeah, it's almost biblical, right?
yeah.
It's that the Lord draws in the ones who really don't wanna do it.
It it's like to me, it's like the when Jesus was talking about the 2 sons and the man asked the
Yeah,
one son to
working in the
go out in
field.
the field and he says, "No,"
Not
and the other one says, "Yes." Well, the one that said no ended up doing it.
this is how it works. For me, I think it was, um, there was a lot of layers to it. One, I hated public speaking. The thought of standing up in front of a big group of people and being vulnerable, etcetera. There was also the added layer of, um, rightly handling the word of God. And
Mm,
so that was something that I had seen done my whole life. And I knew that's not something that you can just do quickly, easily with, slap it together. It requires a lot of deep study, intentionality, um, purpose, all of those things. And I remember when I was young, I used to go in my dad's study and I would just sort of play on the floor or lay down on the floor and I would watch just the intensity with which dad would prepare messages and
mhm.
write and read. And I told him one time, I said, this is like doing a term paper every day. And I'm like, why would you do this? And of course, as a little kid, you're looking at the work and you're like, I don't want to work that hard. I want to work hard at something, but I want to enjoy it. And this looks like something I wouldn't enjoy. But actually, just this Sunday, I was preaching and I said, there's often this time where you hear believers say, well, I'm scared to like fully commit to the Lord because of what he might make me do.
Mhm.
He might send me to a place that I don't want to go. You and I were even talking about a mutual friend who's in a place that I probably wouldn't want to go, right? What I said was the thing is, if it is the Lord's work, if it's his handiwork in it, he doesn't send people unprepared. He always equips them for what they need. But at the same time, he also ensures that they are being reliant upon him. So there's always the training process. I mean, you even think about the Apostle Paul having that time with the Lord to be prepared for what he was going to have to go through, which was a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of suffering
Mm.
that he would deal with. And I think a lot of that foundation was laid in the Lord preparing him for what he would be sent out to do. And so I really was, yeah, I was slowly, slowly, slowly being equipped for that. And when I graduated from college, I did a little bit of work with Leading the Way, Dad's radio and television ministry, and just didn't really feel satisfied in that. My sister had been a speech writer and a domestic policy advisor for George W. Bush, and had worked in the White House, and that always had intrigued me. My brother had done a little bit of presidential advance work, and so I was always caught up and fascinated. I was almost a political science minor, but I wasn't smart enough, so I stuck with just history. But so that was always something that intrigued me. So I had an opportunity to work on a reelection campaign for a US senator here in Georgia, and I had a blast. It was so much fun, and
Mm.
I got to see so many amazing things and meet so many fascinating people, um, but the Lord was quietly giving me this discontentment,
Mm.
and it was looking out on the political scene and understanding the necessity of it, but also realizing there's a lot of people that are putting their all of their hopes
Yes.
in a political solution. When in my mind and my framework and my theology were screaming to me saying, these people will never be satisfied with this. It's a cheap Band-Aid over a really big wound. And even the people I was working with, who I love dearly, and many of them have grown up in Christian homes, but their doctrine of God, their doctrine of Christ was just so warped and twisted and not solid and not built well. And I found myself more highly engaged in theological conversations and practicing faith conversations, and that was the Lord beginning that process of saying, you didn't want to do it. You didn't want to do the term paper stuff, but I'm going to build you up because it really isn't. It's not, I've even got my, Logos here in front of me with the Greek and everything. And there's a lot of that text work, but the text work is only for the edification, the building up, the evangelizing, the work of people work. And I think that was the aspect of sitting in my dad's office that I didn't quite make the connection to, that you labor on this type of work in order that it would be beneficial to people and to their lives and to their families. And so that's, it took me a long time to get to that, to get to that understanding. But, the Lord's been gracious to me and has equipped me with a lot of great mentors throughout the years across the continents. And, yeah, I did my master's at Reformed Theological Seminary here in Atlanta,
Mhm.
which Dad was actually really instrumental in bringing that school here. Two of my very, very close friends are my professors from that. And then after Australia, I was able to do my doctorate in preaching out at Masters Seminary in California. And just, the men that they were bringing out into that program have just continued to pour into me. And I graduated last year, but I still benefit from so much of what I've learned in that process.
I was watching, the Gospel and Genesis series, the last one. I think was it Sunday? Was what
Someday.
it was Sunday was the is that's the last of the in fact, you said something, that stuck out to me. You said, "It's been 4 years," and the congregation chuckled a little bit. And so do you it was 4 years because there's so much in there, right?
Yeah. Yes, there's so much in there, but it was 4 years because I don't go straight through all the way
Okay,
in one swoop. We come in and out. So I learned that from my pastor in Australia. We'll do Genesis for a season, and then I'll do a New Testament, and then
okay,
I'll intersperse little things in between. But the uniqueness of that was, so I preach in the early service at 9 o'clock at Apostles.
okay,
Dad typically has 10:30. Occasionally, I'll come over and do a series and do different things in there. But I had started that series around October of 2021, actually when I was starting my doctorate. And I thought I was just going to do Genesis 3 and call it the Gospel in Genesis. Well,
okay.
I finished that in the 10:30 service, and then I thought, I've got to preach something at 9 o'clock, like ongoing. And I said, maybe I'll just keep going with Genesis and
Mm,
see how far we go. And we got all the way to chapter 50.
that's
So
amazing.
so that group had actually been on the whole journey. A lot of these people who you heard me preaching to had only heard the first part, and I said, You've missed about 40 some odd sermons, and I fully expect you to go back and listen to each and every one."
If I could wind Jonathan Youssef up and he could preach anything he wanted to every single Sunday, what would that be? Is there one specific that this is my sweet spot. I could do this forever.
Rick, I think it's whatever glorifies Christ, which of course would be all of Scripture. But the joy that I get in looking at any passage, Old Testament, New Testament, and finding, not immediately, but ultimately finding its connection to Christ and how that prepares, establishes, builds up, equips, sends out the believers, um, finding the treasures in there that people have a cursory reading of scripture and perhaps miss out on the real key pieces, and just helping people frame that up and receive, so that their affections are changed. That's a Jonathan Edwards phrase that Michael Reeves has reinforced in me. He was one of my lecturers out in California. But the intention of preaching is to change the affections of people,
Mm.
what you care about, what you love. When you set Christ forth in his beauty, people's affections will change away from the things of this world towards Christ. And it makes them realize how ridiculous their sin is. We still wage that war, and we still battle with that, battle. But good preaching will always change the affections of people towards Christ and away from uh, patterns and sin habits and idols and things that seek to take away from that.
When you've had folks come up to you afterward or maybe later on in the week, send you a text or send you an email and say, Pastor Youssef, that message just zapped me right between the eyes. How does that, and I know you don't preach on feelings, but how does that make you feel? When their lights go on, when their affections are changed, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
how, I mean, how does that make you feel?
It's funny, we were talking about my how I didn't want to be in this role, and I think it's to me, often those comments just serve as a reinforcement of the Lord saying, I raised you up for this purpose. I've equipped you for this purpose. It's not about you, and it's about me. It's about my work. And so I just rejoice. Part of my flesh probably rejoices in thinking, "Oh, look, I've done this. This is great. I feel great about myself." But I have to be reminded of how much I didn't want to do this. To be reminded that it's not my work, that it's His work. Um, and so just seeing people, the slow transformation taking place in someone's life is enough to keep you going for a lifetime.
I love what you just said, the slow transformation, because the culture that we live in,
Yes.
and years ago, I was a lead pastor of a church on the South Side and got frustrated with the slow transition. I didn't have that term. If I'd have had it, I would
Right.
have used it, but it
Yeah.
was frustrating. And slow
Yep.
transition means
Transformation.
n-
Yeah.
a transformation
Yeah.
doesn't mean this year even or next year. Sometimes it's a
No.
lifetime, or we may never even see it with those that
That's
maybe move along. But I
yeah.
think that, and I was going to ask you. I mean, you're still a young man. If you could go back and talk to the younger uh, Jonathan Youssef, a few years back, is there anything different that you would say to him? Something you've learned? I mean, I like the slow
Yeah.
transformation. That's a keeper for me even right now.
Yeah. I look, I think it's the message of be patient, um, be trusting. Don't think you know it all because you don't. And I have to even remind myself these days, having preached for almost 16 years now, and I think, I feel like I've got a good groove. And that may be true, but the reality is what I said at the beginning. Um, you never finish that process of growing, of learning. There's always more. There's always more. You never reach the end of Christ. You never reach the end of His love, His goodness, His care, His provision. None of it. You never get to the end of that. And so I think, thinking about if I was speaking to myself at the beginning of the journey, it would be listen well, be patient. Because I have had such fantastic mentors, and there's been times where maybe they've given me a strong challenge and I think, what do you know? You don't know me. You don't know my situation. And the reality is they may not know your specific situation, but they know your general situation. And you need to have an ear to what they have to say to you. Um, there's so much wisdom. My dad has poured so much into me, and I'm, of course, eternally thankful for that. But there are other voices that have come alongside as well and been helpful. And um, but that understanding that transformation doesn't happen overnight is a very important one for pastors to remember. Um, Sanctification is a slow journey, and we need to be in it for the long run. That's how God uses us.
I've got one more question, but I just want to thank you for ministering to me because you have just candidly just spoke just
Yeah,
out.
quick plug for my podcast, which is
But,
called Candid Conversations.
but that was my segue.
Sorry.
That was my segue. No,
Sorry.
no, but seriously, thank you. I mean that sincerely. I do this because I want other pastors to be encouraged and to keep
Yeah,
on keeping on.
yeah,
We talk to pastors, small, medium, large church, every size, and they all seem to come up with the same challenges. But they're they're going. They're moving forward. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. But you have personally ministered to me,
Praise God.
that is so refreshing. All right, now let's talk about this podcast. Now I listened to which one did I listen to? I wanted to listen to, then I got called into a staff meeting. I listened to one of the podcast about security. That was really good. But the one about Vacation Bible School, Bible, yeah, I was getting ready to listen, and I got called into a meeting, and then I had this podcast, so I didn't get to listen to it. But I
Yeah.
want to plug this. And you've been doing this for a while, haven't you? Well, let me say what it is.
Yes. 6 years, I think.
Candid Conversations with Jonathan Youssef. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So I'm sorry. How long have you done that?
I think we're about 6 years now. It was all pre-COVID. We were going great, and then and then I have to do my recordings from home, which wasn't as fun. But it's been such a blessing to me. I didn't know, I'm 41. I didn't know what a podcast was when we started. I had a general idea, but they hadn't really reached the popularity, or maybe I just wasn't with the times enough. And the team at Leading the Way said, "Oh, we're trying to kind of do this next generation thing. What would you think about doing a podcast?" And I thought, I don't know about this. And we all just sat down and committed. So if you're thinking about doing one, I know we're currently on one, but you really have to commit to 100 episodes.
Yes.
That was kind of the threshold that we had to get over. And there were times where I wanted to pull the plug, and I said, I've got so much stuff I got to do. My job does complete related, but completely other things. I can't be running to the studio. And anyway, we committed. And what I realized was, in my time in Australia, I had gotten such great exposure to some fantastic minds, theological minds, people who had, unbelievable testimonies. And I really felt like people don't know the people that I know. And I want them to know the people that I know.
Oh, that's good.
And so and I want them to hear what they have to say, because this is really great insight that I have benefited from, and I want I want to share that with people. And so that's really kind of how I took the idea and kind of formulated it into what it's become. And so, you've got anyone from professional baseball players to um, established theologians to a person you would run into in the grocery store. And the beautiful thing is just the way that God has woven these people's separate lives, but we're all kind of being knit together into
Mm.
this into the global church, and being able to share insights and takes on parenting, and dealing with difficult situations, and dealing with LGBTQ issues, and all myriad of things. And we get to tackle all of those. And there were times where we thought, I think we're running out of people to interview and talk about, and that's not true. There's the list just keeps going, and so now my team has to work a little harder to find some people, but it's been fun, and I've got to share it with have my friends on, and people, again, as I said, that have had such a great impact on me in my life, and people who have written fantastic books and have websites and all kinds of things. I want it to be a resource to people. So by all means, if any of the listeners want to have a listen to that, Candid Conversations. Yeah.
Wherever you get your podcast, I actually listen to it on YouTube, which is
Yeah.
we found out is if it's not the top, it's the top two, number two, and where people listen to podcasts now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you
Yeah.
know,
That was news to me as well.
yeah, we found that out. So and I, since I'm 60 something, I call it the YouTube. But I just said, okay, hey, I'm on YouTube already. I
Yeah.
love listening to this. This is great stuff. It's called Candid Conversations with Jonathan Youssef, and you're gonna really gonna enjoy it. I know you're a busy man, and we do we this is a valuable time for us. Thank you for taking time out for us.
Absolutely.
God's blessing to you and your sweet family, and
Thank you, Rick.
I hope you have a great anniversary, and no worries, right? No worries, just
No
enjoy it.
worries, mate.
A lot of laughter and a lot of waves, right? Isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Is it no, it's winter in Australia now, isn't it?
Yeah. It's getting, yeah.
Yeah,
Winter.
yeah. Well, have a good time on your time away. Again, Jonathan Youssef, Pastor Jonathan Youssef. And I do make mention that, of course, Faith Talk Atlanta, we cross post the live stream of the services there at the Church of the Apostle. Well, next week, another great guest. Thanks for joining us. Until next weekend, I'm Rick Probst. Two Pastors Unplugged. See ya.